Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing today? How y'all feeling, man? How's everybody doing, man? I hope everything is smooth. I hope all of you are well. I hope your mind and your health and your body and your spirit and everything's intact, man. And just man, I hope everyone's blessed and prospering. But with that being said, y'all know why we here. Y'all know why we here, man. Inside the Inventory Podcast, episode 3. We are live and in full effect, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. I, it's so cool to me every time I say that. I just like to be dramatic. But episode 3, man, today is going to be a special one. But before I get into all of that, man, because we got time. We got time today. We got time today. you know. But if you are a returning listener on today's show, man, welcome back. You are like family to me. You are no longer an audience member. Man, thank you for tuning in. See yet another episode. You guys is going to like this one today. I promise you. But need I say more, because y'all already know how we do around these parts. But if you so happen to be a brand new listener on today's show, wow, you just tapped into a beautiful experience, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. I'm your host, Justice Marshawn, the one and only, the founder of Inside the Inventory Podcast, and I will be taking care of you today myself, man. So with that being said, man, let's jump right into it, man. Let's roll this thing. So before I get into today's story, man, I want to say that, man, you guys, I appreciate you guys, man. It could be one person listening to this. It could be hundreds of thousands of people listening to it, man. None of that matters to me. Just the fact that, I get to share these stories with you guys. And, man, that does everything for me. But what I will say is that, the support means a lot. Liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing these with any and everybody who just enjoys podcasts. Enjoy storytelling, all of these things goes a long way. It's a help me help you situation. And man, I put a lot of work into this for sure. For those of you who didn't know, I'm sure you guys have seen, some of my credits and everything, but this whole production I do it myself. The scripting, the writing, the filming, the lighting, the color, the sound, putting it all together in a one big melting pot, and for what you guys see right here in front of you, it is all done by me. And I love the fact that I get to wake up every day and create and do something that I love, and it's just a joy. So I appreciate you guys for allowing me to share, my art with you. But with that being said, man, today's episode is actually a new joint that I've been writing. This one is not on any streaming platforms. It's not available to the public yet outside of what you see right here in this video, but it will be uploaded to streaming platforms following the release of this video. So you can check it out. You can check it out for any Audible content. Man, so with this story, actually, it started out because it came to be because I actually took a road trip to the South this past December. So December of 2022, I took a trip to the South, and man, I believe it or not, I drove all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to Atlanta, Georgia. And man, whew, that boy was moving. I know what y'all thinking, like, whoa, that boy was on a roll. Yes, I was out of there getting to it, pedal to the metal, all that. But it was tight though. I saw a lot of states and a lot of places that I had never seen before. It was all uncharted territory for me, and it was amazing. It was exhilarating, and I enjoyed every second of it. And I think, the part about it, outside of like going to so many states and so many places that I had never been to before, was the fact that, like, I was noticing that as I got further and further south, especially once I started touching like Mississippi and Alabama and all these places, each of these states started to like have very little like differences in terms of like distinction. And it wasn't until I got at least like, 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour into the next state over from the state that I just previously came from, is where I started to notice, those like differentiating like factors, whether it be, the infrastructure, the agriculture, the land, the layout, the landscape, the people, whatever the case is, right? So I'm just thinking, I'm just like, man, I'm going through all these places, and I feel like, the only difference that I can tell, at least like immediately, is just like the fact that the state border tells me that I've entered a new state. And I just like, when you're taking, I took a solo road trip. So, it was pretty much me the whole time, outside of when I was with family and friends along the way. You get a lot of time to think, you just do. And I couldn't help but think at the fact that, sometimes it is, a fine line or like a definitive distinction that makes two very alike things so different. And that in part, and in many more reasons, is what inspired today's story, a moment in time. What is a moment in time? Like, what does that even mean, right? And I was thinking, and I was just like, man, like a moment in time is like a brief crossroad. It's a pivotal or a changing moment in a person's life where it's that moment is shared exclusively between you and that moment. It's sacred. And usually they come about so interestingly, right? It's just like they're presented in these small, like, sample size type situations, but the undertone of what a lot of people don't realize is that they actually reaffirm and tell us a lot about who we are, like, inside, truly. And the deciding factor always comes down to like a microcause and effect, and just and a decision. And what I've come to realize is that it's less about the event that happened or the situation that a person went through, but rather how we choose to respond to that. I think it's easy to trick ourselves into believing that, like, we're these, like, unflawed, like, perfect people by nature, when the circumstances present very little pressure. But it's when those big picture moments happen where we're really on the hot seat, and those are the moments and those are the times that we ask ourselves, okay, who are we really during these moments? Because quite frankly, it's easy to be when things are easy. For example, say you have um let me put my yak down. No, I'm just playing. This ain't no drink. This is water, y'all. Because y'all almost caught me slipping, bro, on the previous two episodes, man. So I had to make sure I come with some good agua purificado on this one. But say, for example, you have two people who share just about identical, circumstances, right? And one person, decides that, okay, even though I acknowledge the fact that I went through this really tough crossroad, this really tough, period in my life, I'm going to use it to make me better. And then on the other hand, you have a person who went through, pretty much a similar disposition, or just an identical misfortune, and they decide, okay, you know what, this situation got the best of me, and they allow it to cripple them. And that's the significance in a crossroad, is just that pivot or that changing moment that is followed by a decision on how we what direction we want to go from that. And alongside that, so many other things happen that go unnoticed. Another big thing that happens is like the transformation of a person's true nature, because situations, they do change us, for better or for worse. When I write these episodes, something that I've been trying to be more, just making more of a habit of, is making sure that I'm, like, referencing material sources outside of my own words. As much as I love to hear, like, myself talk and all these things, actually, no, I take that back. Sometimes I actually get tired of hearing my own voice. Um, but as much as I love to use my own thought process and my own patterns, I have to make sure that I'm, like, referencing words that are not my own. One being the word of God. The word of God is important. It's a template, and it's a manuscript on how to do things, and how to be. And another thing is just, like, using credible outside sources, which is has some importance, some relevance, but not as much as the word of God. And so I was thinking about, like, okay, what Bible verses, like, actually speak to this undertone of how we should be by nature, and how and just how that, like, predicates how we just handle everything in our lives. And I immediately, like, almost immediately thought of the fruits of the spirit. If you don't know, now you know. The fruits of the spirit is Galatians 5, by the way, Galatians 5. The fruit of the spirit is pretty cool because it's like it just basically highlights like what emotional and like characteristic traits that we should have like innately. Just to name a few, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self control, all those things, right? And a lot of those we have, but a lot of those we don't necessarily use all the time, and especially in like high pressure situations. And it's just like if we don't use those in high pressure situations, then that's not truly who we are by nature, right? And I wanted to use this as like contextual reference, but also like just the relevance behind it. And this isn't to like indict anyone, right? Like this isn't an indictment, but more so encouragement for application. Truly, I think in a perfect world, like we would love to be this way. We would love to be, just handle everything with love and kindness and gentleness and all these things. But in real life, it does not go that way. Um, and I think once we get to a point where we can like really learn to internalize uh and then choose how we react to things, based on the word of God, I think that's when we actually begin to do something that we didn't know was possible, and that's restructure our true nature. As for the other source, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking article junkie. I don't I wouldn't say books aren't necessarily like my forte, but yeah, I kind of have a problem with reading articles, but that's neither here nor there. We'll be all right. But no, articles are dope because I think they're meaty. They give me what I need. They're very condensed, and I can just scroll all day, honestly. But I was reading some articles that were pretty interesting. One, to name a few, one was about the power of decision making, which I thought was really, really intriguing. One was about just our emotional states and our emotional beings, and then the other was about just our true temperaments. And this article in particular, and I'm actually going to put a diagram on the screen to allow you guys to see where I pulled this graph from. But this graph was super super cool that I found. So the axis is characterized by stability and exposure or openness. However you like to define these categories or these axes. But and then within the regions, you see the four regions. They consist of melancholic, sanguine, caloric, and phlegmatic. And and you know what? You like as people, I think we're gifted. We're so gifted with like an incredible amount of um temperaments, like a wide range of temperaments that we have access to that's in our tool belt. And the only thing that changes as a variable of when and how we use them is because of the stimuli that we're presented to every day. We're constantly taking in new stimuli just from life. And and so as I dive into this, the one thing I want you to keep in mind is like I'm not trying to probe you into some like false generic like personality test, but this is more so to like show you and highlight the variety of emotions and characteristics that we have at our disposal. And also to that, how fine these like four lines are. These four lines are incredibly fine. And another distinction that I actually want to make too is just like, this is not to coerce you. This is not to funnel you into like some subjective margin. Um, and to say like, okay, if you have, X, Y, and Z qualities here, then this is just where you are. And that's what it is. That's not the case either. I think what this can help with um, is providing, like a fundamental template that will allow us to help better understand ourselves and how we are by nature. And also realize like, okay, what traits do I need in order to adopt change in my life? And so I would say the only thing that I would add to that graph is putting the fruits of the spirit in the center. And I'm like, okay, if we got that, we get to go. So of course I found the chart. So you guys know what comes next. I cannot resist. I literally cannot resist, bro. I had to try it out. I was like, okay, where do I feel like I most naturally fall in terms of these four regions? I was like, I think I'm phlegmatic. I think I'm phlegmatic, but you know what? I do kind of possess some other qualities in these other three regions, but that's okay. That's okay. Because I think we all do. We all have takeaways from each of these four regions, I'm sure. But I wanted to include this because I think that the way we are by nature, like again, these emotional characteristic traits that we have by nature are copied from somewhere. They're I think the biggest and most impactful impressions are from either people or events that we've been exposed to. And so for example, right? Like so my phlegmatic nature comes from learning about Jesus, learning about Jesus through the word of God. And bro, Jesus was one of them ones. Like he was that guy, bro. Jesus was that guy. Literally a person who was thoughtful and empathetic and calm inside and out and everything that he did, and it was just on full display for everyone to see at all times. He was the same way in public as he was behind closed doors, utmost integrity. That was just he was just that guy. Like and so learning about him is like me trying to mimic and copy, the way he was by nature. And that's why I say like I'm kind of most phlegmatic, because I have changed a lot. And not saying I'm not anything perfect, but just really like trying my best to imitate him. And I would say like my sanguine and chloric qualities come from my family. I mean, for real, that part. Because I mean, man, so many personalities in my immediate and my extended family. On top of like the fact that Black culture is can be so, Black culture can have like this exotic synergy behind it. A lot of um man, it can be a lot. It's very high energy. It's very just rich. It's very rich. But it can be also, very volatile too at the same time. And I would say like my melancholic traits probably come from like the misfortune, right? Like the unfortunate life experiences that I've had, that have very much troubled me. And what they've and a lot of them have kind of like forced me to shelter myself in a lot of ways, just making me more cautious, more reluctant in certain things, and that's okay. But it's just like the way that it sculpted me. Um, and those are those regions are a culmination of who I am. I find it so like funny, man. I used to really wrestle with these concepts a lot. I used to wrestle with these concepts a lot about trying to account for when I have crossroads in my life, and just thinking back to like, okay, how did I actually react to this one? What did it actually do to me? And I think in situations that force me into uncharacteristic states, are just like when I feel like the furthest from myself. I remember going through certain experiences, and I literally feel like I'm having an outer body experience, and I'm just like, wow, like that situation took me to that place in that moment. Oh, there's no way, I don't even recognize this dude. And that's like the crazy part about it is just like there's so much power in being able to like go through a situation and withstand something without it ever changing you, without it ever truly changing you internally. And then on the other side of the coin, as you could probably guess, just like it's super disheartening, like when you go through a situation and you let it get the best of you, and even more so, you let that person or that situation garner so much power and authority over you to the point where it changes you. You ever see those people who are just like, I mean, it's funny, like in the movies, they say it's like the old grumpy man who is just like who never smiles and never speaks to anyone, all these things, right? And it's just like, you ever wonder why he's that way? Or for the people who are just always like either sad or angry or bitter all the time, like you ever wonder why they're that way, like by nature, right? Um, and it's difficult to like undo something that's already been done, and something that's like literally festered and grown and cultivated inside of your spirit. And that takes a lot of like practice and just intentional changing. But again, it's easier said than done. When I was a teenager, man, oh, it was rough. Oh, it was rough, man. And even like leading into like my young adult years, I was just, I was just, I think I was just truly incapable of expressing myself. I really think so. Like, just for those of you who look at me and and are just like, wow, he's so open and he's so vulnerable, like it, because it wasn't always this way. This took a lot of um, trial and error. It took a lot of crossroads to be able to practice it in real time. I just remember like always being so passive and like being reluctant to express myself, and even to like the people who were closest to me too, like my family. I saw this a lot. I got a lot of like backlash in my romantic relationships for being this way, which was a huge reason why I changed outside of like my family and my friends telling me that, okay, maybe you should switch it up. Cause it was just like, I always gave people like the most limited version of me. I even the people closest, they would always, get, 60, 70% of me. And it was just always those constant reminders. I hated it so much. I'm like, bro, I do not have like, if one more person says this, and it just, I think that's what like irritated me so much more and like made me even more reluctant to change, is because I just heard it all the time. And I would say arguably like I would say the most prominent line that I got was like people always telling me like, why are you so closed off? It's either that one, why are you so closed off, or you need to let people be there for you. And I was like, man, I hate this. But then I realized, I was like, dang, sheesh, what if they're right though? What if they're actually right? What if these are the people that have my best interest and know me inside and out, that have the actual like jurisdiction to tell me this? What does that mean? And what does that say about me? What does that say about the version that they've got of me? Because I thought of myself as like this fun, energetic, like laughy, jokey type dude. And the whole time, I'm being super stale and super like reserved to the people who, don't deserve that. And so, I made changes. I made effort and changes, and it wasn't overnight for sure. I had to go back and continue to like uh figure out what my crossroads are, and practice in the midst of those crossroads, and dig up those weeds. And it's just, I think it's amazing. Like I remember so vividly the way I used to be. And it's just like, for the people who know me now, like in present time, I think they kind of have a hard time believing that I used to be a completely different way. Um, but I went from this person who was almost closed off to everyone, to literally like sitting behind this microphone, like chopping it up with you guys, telling you guys everything. And that's no coincidence. That's straight testimony right there. That's straight testimony if I ever heard one. Because I think uh, life ain't perfect. It never is. And I think what happens is like, we are subject to the pendulum. We're subject to the pendulum, and um, I think that we have to go from letting things that have happened to us. We just got, first of all, I just want to say, we got certain things we just have to let go. Just straight up. I don't know who this is for, but certain things you just got to let go. You can't hold on to it. You can't, you've allowed whatever that is to like fester and to like penetrate, like penetrate your spirit. And you just got to let it go. You can't harbor anything that isn't, working to your best benefit, because that's not who you are. And it's so unfortunate that, an unfortunate circumstance, or just being dealt a bad hand or anything has went from, you being upset and hating that situation, to you being upset and just hating people that have nothing to do with that situation, to you just being mad and upset for no reason all the time. And we can't allow something to have that much power over us. We are creative, intuitive, profound, expressive, lively human beings. We're amazing. We're God's creation, and we're gonna go through a lot of stuff in this life. But I think it has to get to a point where we become proactive rather than reactive. And when I say, reactive, is when you allow the situation or the thing that happens to you, you allow that thing to dictate you. You allow that thing to control, the version that it gets from you. When you're proactive, you just accept it for what it is, and you stay intact within. When you're squared away from within, anything external, man, that's just gonna be what it is, for real. It's just gonna be what it is at the end of the day. but you're not going to let that penetrate. You're not going to let it penetrate so deep that it changes you. And that's what a crossroad is. And I've gotten a lot better at like identifying my crossroads too. I would say two of my crossroads right now, and in closing, is probably my family. Number one, so much dysfunction and just so much like hardship from within, in our nucleus, and just trying to like keep it all together, as a unit. And it's hard. We're all so different. We all have, personal, individual circumstances that we're all working through, from financial to medical to emotional to relational, so many different circumstances. And I continue to like just believe that God will see us through, and I know He will. And then also just like struggling to find peace sometimes. I do struggle to find peace from within, but none of those things are going to change me. I know my true nature, and I know that I don't have to be subject to the things that happen in my life or happen around me, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be what it is till it ain't. And so I encourage you all, if you're listening to these stories, it's just like, be all right. But don't ever let something take you so far out of character and so far to reach from the person that you know to be you, that you change. Don't change for nobody. If you do change for the better. And man, I hope I can leave you guys with something good on that front. But man, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for tuning into this brand new episode, man. A moment in time on Inside the Inventory podcast. This was my first time ever sharing this story, and I thank you guys. Continue to support, man. If you got somebody who's crafting, man, somebody who's passionate, don't wait till they big to support, man. Support them while they're here. Give them their flowers while they're here, because everybody's working on something, man. Everybody wants to be great. And if you got somebody that you truly care about, or somebody that, okay, I respect dude's grind. I respect Buddy hustle for sure. Like, help him win. And so, with that being said, man, wow. Today was smooth. I appreciate y'all for vibing out with me, man, on this one. And I got a lot more in store with the podcast. So, again, you have just now tuned into another episode of Inside the Inventory podcast by your host, Justice Marshawn. I'm going to check in with y'all real soon, man. I'm gone.